And I'm here with a Wolf.
Yes, Dr. Wolf von Laer from Students for Liberty.
Fantastic. So you are working with students?
Yeah, so we have a worldwide student network in over 107 countries. In America, in Australia, all across the world. We're interested in free markets, free speech, and sound money, and therefore Bitcoin.
So how are you educating the next generation about Bitcoin?
So they're coming to us, and so we're recruiting them carefully. And so we have, like, any given time, 2,000 to 3,000 volunteers. They are interested in these ideas, and so we're giving them online material. We have a YouTube channel called Learn Liberty. We have online education programming, and last year, and that's mostly what the students are doing, they have organized events for over 215,000 people, where they talk about the ideas that we're talking about here. So it's peer-to-peer education.
So what is the structure of your organization? Is decentralized? Is more centralized? You are operating in so many countries.
Yeah, I mean, we can only operate because we're heavily decentralized. Of course, we have staff, we have 80 full-time staff members, and many of them actually came through our programs. So they are alumni of our programs. And so they are there to recruit us and then to mentor them, but then the students organize themselves. So to give you an idea, last year we have probably done 10,000 interviews. So stuff like that, like for people to become part of the organization. And a lot of that is done by the students. So they're not only getting the theoretical training, but also the application. And then once they're part of the program, they organize themselves. So I don't know where you're from, but like, for instance, the network in Spain is like super strong. So we have like 5 people on the top, and then they're organizing 50 other volunteers, and they're organizing thousands of events every single, semester at universities.
So I think it's difficult to say, either only Bitcoin or more general, because sometimes there is a silver line there.
Yeah. So I would say the difference is specifically, generally what students are feeling is that most universities across the world don't teach ideas of a free society. They don't teach like why we need markets in order to have like a prosperous society. They say like we need government for everything. They don't teach about money, which is a huge problem. This is what I studied. I have a PhD in political economy, and I've written a book against the Federal Reserve because I realized like once the money, if you take it away from government cannot grow infinitely. They cannot have all of these wars. They cannot go into debt. They cannot like really control us that much because there would be like natural limitations to what they can do. So that's an important question that they're coming to us, like what is money? And what is good money? What is a good society? What is good politics? What should government actually do? Because so many governments do way too much and they're doing it wrong and impoverishing their people. So those are the main questions. And then often they ask us a question like, okay, what is money? And then also, what is Bitcoin? Is it just magic internet money, or is there something more to it? And we educate them on that.
So how are you working with the traditional educational systems? Because that's quite interesting. You are creating some kind of like a network of different type of education, but at the same time you are competing in a way with the traditional education. Is that collaboration that you are doing?
Sometimes, mostly we're working around them, right? Because most universities, as I said, like are very focused more on big government ideas. Not all of them, but most of them. And so sometimes they don't like our clubs. Like when they start groups, our students, they don't like them. They forbid them even, which is really, really sad if you think like most countries should be adhering to free speech. But so they're just like meeting sometimes off the campus and so forth. But there are universities where you have professors that like what we do, and they're supporting the students, they're recruiting other students, and like speak at our events. So as I've mentioned, like we had like events for 215,000 people. So often we rely on university professors to give those speeches. One example, you are probably familiar with Javier Milei from Argentina. He is a professor, and he used to give a lot of presentations to our students over the last years, and you can see him actually wearing our pin from the organization.
What's the future of education?
The future of education will be more decentralized. I think it will be more peer-to-peer, and I think it will be also more online. People realizing that a university education doesn't give them the skills that they need in order to succeed in the workforce. Because often universities just like teach ideas that I would consider often bad ideas. They don't teach leadership skills, organizational skills, interview skills, things that you, for instance, have, because you have been learning all of these things, you're studying them, and you have a practical application of them. But universities don't teach them very often, not. And so then the future is to become like much more value oriented. And I think we are part of that, but there's so many different approaches out there how we can educate the youth or older people as well.
But I think the government over the years is playing a very important role for education, supporting universities, supporting schools. I did a public school. There are not
So
just
did I.
private. Exactly.
Yeah.
So, we are now inserting a different element into it. We are saying education should be more decentralized. What is going to be, how this actually is going to work, and what role the government is still going to play in the educational space?
Excellent question. I think it will be an uphill battle, but I think, like it or not, I'm German, but I live in the United States. Often the United States is a trailblazer in many of these things, right? And we can see specifically during COVID, a lot of schools have not even taught anyone anymore. The teachers' union were protesting, they didn't want to work. And so parents actually realize we pay all of these taxes, but we don't get an education, and the teachers don't want to work. So now you have like much more education there, which they call K to 12, which is happening by private, smaller, or not even private, but also like from churches or from a civil society organization that are competing with normal public schools. So I think in competition, as with every kind of market, will produce a better good. And if we give more choices to folks, prices will also go down. So I think that's where we're going to head it, but it will take a long time, and people don't want to take away any of those powers from the government, because people say like, hey, we need education. People cannot envision how education could look like in a market.
How can you sustain a business that is decentralized from a monetary perspective?
I mean, just look around the world. All businesses are to some extent decentralized. I mean, if you take out like businesses that are very close to government, like banks and so forth, but like, we don't have to worry about if we can get a coffee in this city or not. Like everywhere around the world, you can probably get coffee. It's decentralized. Nobody makes this. It's a price system.
So will be a local private organization that you are going to look at education from a different perspective.
Absolutely, and they're competing with one another. And different entrepreneurs come with different ideas. Maybe you have an idea. Maybe you want to create a school about journalism or entrepreneurship or investment. And then you can start that, and then some people will come to you. And if you're doing a good job, more people will come to you, pay you well. And if you don't do a good job, you get out of business.
I think it's very interesting because kind of like in the traditional educational model, you have got teachers, they study, they've got certain time of certification where actually they are able to exercise their profession. But if you look at the Bitcoin space and these like new ideas of, if we think about education from a different perspective, you don't need those certification that allows you to teach. So how we can retain Italian professionalism in this future educative scenario?
Also a good question. I would say right now the problem is, even though people are certified and are often educated, they can often not be fired. Try to fire a public school teacher. Try to fire a professor, that has, it's protected. We can't. And I had a professor at school who was an alcoholic, who drank every day, and everybody knew that, but you couldn't fire them. So even if they produce a bad good on the market, a bad educational product, nothing will change. If your public school is going to teach worse next year, nothing will happen, right? Maybe there's scoring, maybe there's a little bit of that, but it doesn't work. If you have like a market and people giving choices to different things, people will find what they need, as we find like a restaurant that we like, right? And it's why would school be different? In school, if you look at it, because it's so much in the hand of the government, it has not changed. 150 years ago, public school system was invented by the Prussians, Germans, right? Why? Because they wanted obedient people that can go into the army or can go into industry and don't ask questions. And it was 150 years ago, it was a chalkboard and some chalk. Now you go in a classroom, it's the freaking same thing. That is impossible. Why did we not see like so much education in the public system? And that's what people need to ask the question.
I've got a question for you. Now we have AI, and AI is playing a big role in educating people, and it's a tool that people and students use. So what is the role that AI is playing in the education space?
I think it's a huge one, where you have like an avatar, just like a faceless person that is like Socrates, and he's taught with all of the information of the things that Socrates has ever written, and you can interact with that person as if they were Socrates and gave you answers like that style. This already exists, and I think this could be interesting. However, human beings often learn also like peer-to-peer. I think we can do like a lot of online stuff, but like a conversation with someone who you can look in the eye, who is a person, I think there's still a different quality to it. I think AI can teach us so many different things and it will be phenomenal, but I don't want to discount the importance of like gatherings like this where you get together in person.
Yeah, the real connection that you can make with a real human being and not an AI hologram.
Precisely.
Completely understand. Thank you, Dr. Wolf.
Thank you very much.